It's the International Soccer Preview. This is Series 15 of our MediaCast. It's the short version of Series 14 on Euro 2024 qualifying. We're looking at Group G: Hungary, Serbia, Montenegro, Bulgaria, and Lithuania. Here we go. It's the International Soccer Preview, Series 15. This series is a shortened version of Series 14 and primarily part 3 of that series.
Let's look at each team in Group G with a summary of their history and then a look at their recent form.
All right, well, we begin with Hungary. And Hungary took second place in the 1938 and 1954 World Cups and were considered the strongest team in the world. Their slow, long fall from the top in the early 50s hit bottom with a 6th place finish in the Euro 2008 qualifying group. However, improving performances since 2012 are moving in the direction of a resurgence, though by no means to their former level. Although it is the expansion of the Euro Cup in 2016 that has given them their first entry into a tournament since 1986, they made the most of it by passing the group stage in first place. They qualified again in 2020, but that was through a back door, and not too much should be made of it because their qualifying campaigns haven't improved significantly.
Looking at their recent performance, 2012 marked their first finish in the top half of a qualifying table since 1988, with the exception of an uncharacteristically strong World Cup campaign in 1998. They rose to 3 third-place finishes in World Cup qualifications and in 2 Euro Cup qualifications, though they fell back to 4th-place finishes in their 2020 and 2022 campaigns. But their best performance was in the 2022-23 UEFA Nations League A group, where they twice beat England, condemning them to relegation, and bested Germany to finish second above them, reminiscent of that strength they showed in the 1950s.
Yes, Hungary and England have an interesting history there in the 1950s, but that's beyond our scope here, and we're going to move on to Team 2, Serbia. So the historical Yugoslavia has undergone political changes, and its legacy carries down to Serbia, having played under the names of Yugoslavia FR and Serbia and Montenegro in between. It is sad that political upheavals in the early to mid-90s caused them to miss cups through UN-sanctioned bans. But for that, they could boast being the only team to never miss a World Cup or Regional Cup campaign. Their consistency in participating is juxtaposed by the inconsistency of their results. Their success is impressive, especially in the early years of each cup. That's 2 top 4 finishes in World Cups until 1962 and 3 top 4 finishes in Euro Cups to 1976. But in both, they failed to qualify for several cups during those periods. After the bans of the early 90s, Yugoslavia FR returned strong, passing the group stage of the 1998 World Cup and the 2000 Euro Cup. Through the changes from Yugoslavia FR to Serbia and Montenegro to just Serbia, they quite admirably kept up their World Cup record, at least qualifying for the majority of them, even if they didn't pass the group stage. Not so with the Euro Cup, where 2000 marks their last appearance.
Looking at their recent performance, it is odd that they have reached 3 of the last 4 World Cups, but no Euro Cup since the year 2000, especially considering that the Euro Cup became much easier to reach after it expanded in 2016. Poor campaigns there have seen them fall to the likes of Albania and Scotland. Their last 2 World Cup runs, on the other hand, are 2 first-place finishes over Portugal in 2022, with only 1 loss across both qualifying campaigns. They looked weaker in the Cups, though, failing at the group stage both times. In 2022-23 UEFA Nations League B, they lost their first game at home to Norway, but otherwise suffered only a draw in Slovenia. 2 wins over Sweden helped condemn them to League C, while they, Serbia, were promoted to League A.
All right, well, now we move on to Montenegro, who at time was combined with Serbia, so their history is quite short. Montenegro is a small part of Yugoslavia and then part of Serbia and Montenegro, as mentioned, until participating independently from 2010. A poor result in their first campaign did at least show them competitive with other teams, and this came to fruition by finishing second in their Euro 2012 qualifying group to reach a playoff. They lost this, though, and would never come as close to the tournament. In fact, they went into a steady decline, finishing in the top half of the table in the following two World Cup campaigns, but in the bottom half in Euro qualifications. And this hit the bottom in 2020 with a last place finish in their Euro qualifying group.
Yeah, that looking at recent performance, that last place finish you mentioned in the 2020 Euro qualifying was the low point in a decade that saw them get progressively weaker. This is particularly evident in their Euro Cup results, but they have looked stronger in World Cup play. In 2022 World Cup qualification, they bounced back a little and reestablished themselves, at least as a spoiler team. 2 wins over Romania in 2022-23 Nations League C play was good, but they otherwise only managed to draw with Bosnia-Herzegovina and finished third in their group to remain in League C.
All right, and now we move on to another Eastern European team, Bulgaria. And despite regularly qualifying for the World Cup between 1962 and 1998, they did poorly in the Cups. In fact, over their 7 appearances in the tournament, only in 1 did they win a match. That was in 1994, when they actually won enough matches to finish 4th in the tournament, their best result by far. Only when the Euro Cup expanded to 16 teams in 1996 did they qualify for that tournament. But since their second appearance there in 2004, where they once again fell at the group stage, they have not reached a tournament in either cup. In both, they have grown ever weaker, sinking to the bottom half of the table in campaigns since 2010.
Yeah, in recent performance and recent campaigns, they have dropped from a mid-table finisher to a bottom half finisher. In other words, competitive third place finishes have dropped to 4th and even 5th place finishes. 2020 seems an exception since they reached a playoff, but it was earned on the basis of UEFA Nations League C ticket, which they did not take advantage of. In that league, they were promoted in 2018-19, but were immediately demoted to League C again, where they remained after a competitive second place finish in 2022-23 behind Georgia, but ahead of North Macedonia.
All right, and our last team is Lithuania. So Lithuania joined 2 World Cup campaigns in 1934 and 1938 before being absorbed by the Soviet Union in 1940. They returned as an independent nation for the 1994 World Cup and began with a competitive third-place finish in 1996 Euro Cup qualifying and in the 1998 World Cup campaign. But that was as close as they came, and they grew increasingly weaker, finishing in the bottom half of the group from then on. Even then, they earned some impressive spoiler results, twice tying Italy and earning a draw in Germany, and they had an interesting tradition of starting campaigns with a good result. But those strong results diluted into wins against lesser teams like Scotland and Czech Republic, and then even further in recent campaigns, not challenging those kind of teams at all. Rather, they have declined to the point of being victims of the weakest teams in the region, like Luxembourg and Liechtenstein.
Looking at recent performance, until recently, they did remain a decent spoiler team, capable of taking points off second to third tier teams like Scotland and Slovenia. However, their last 2 campaigns have been dreadful, earning only a single point in Europe 2020 qualifying and a single win in 2022 World Cup qualifying. It was no better in their 2022-23 UEFA Nations League C group, where they earned only a draw against Faroe Islands and were demoted to the bottommost league. They are in dire form currently, struggling with the weakest teams in the region.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of Group G. So let's move on to, that's end of the history section of Group G. So let's move on to Part 3 of Series 14, where Connor and I discuss the prospects of each of these teams. We're going to actually begin with the pots that they come from to get a sense of, this also gives us a strength of how strong the group is on the whole. Do you want to take it away there?
Yeah, so the pots were not decided by FIFA rankings. They were decided by UEFA Nations League performance. So Hungary's strong performance saw them as a pot 1 team. I mean, they do seem to be probably, the weakest team in terms of FIFA rankings among the pot 1 teams, but they were ranked 8th overall in Europe based on, again, a very strong Nations League campaign. Mm-hmm. Serbia come from near the bottom of pot 2. Moving on to pot 3, Montenegro also were 7th out of 10 teams there in terms of rankings. Next we have Bulgaria. They were 3rd bottom in pot 4. And then finally Lithuania, they were from the middle of pot 5. So overall, based on where these teams come from in their pots, none of them are really from the top half of their pots. So you have to say it's a weaker group overall. In terms of where those teams have come from.
Yeah, pretty interesting analysis there. But yeah, you'd have to say on the whole that this is one of the weakest groups that we have.
Yeah.
So maybe an opportunity for a weaker team to make it back to the cup. Okay, let's move on to their FIFA rankings. As you said, their pot placement was based on their European thing. So we'll just focus on the FIFA and ELO rankings here.
Yeah, so I mentioned Hungary being kind of the weakest pot 1 team, and it's really backed up by their FIFA ranking, which is 36. That would put them normally nowhere near a pot 1 placement, despite some good performance. The ranking is 36 in FIFA, 19th in ELO. It's actually shown a bit of a steady rise from kind of the 50s from December 2017. Though in December 2015, they were 20th in FIFA, coinciding with a good run in that European Cup.
Yeah, so up and down over the past 10 years as well as over the whole history, although really it's kind of a history of decline.
Yeah. Serbia's recent history is one of at least some improvement according to their rankings. They're 29th in FIFA and 21st in ELO, so right around kind of where Hungary is. Both those numbers are actually recent improvements, likely based on reaching the last World Cup. They spent most of the time in kind of the 30s and 40s, even the 50s in FIFA ranking over the past 10 years. But again, steady improvement for Serbia.
Yeah, kind of interesting that they're 7 points below Hungary, ahead of Hungary in the FIFA rankings, but actually a couple of points below them in ELO. So I'm sure we'll bring that up in our discussion.
Yeah, then to Montenegro, they're 69th in FIFA, 73rd in ELO, so a drop down from the top 2. They actually were as high as 43rd in FIFA in June 2018, but since then have kind of fallen, and kind of the 60s to 70s is where they've been in both ranking systems for the past several years.
Yeah, and I think actually at the beginning, before 2012, they were a lot higher. So again, I wasn't thinking of them as a fallen giant, and they're really not, but they did start a lot better as a team and then kind of progressively sank. So I'm feeling better and better about our fallen giant team.
Yeah.
Here, yeah. How about Bulgaria?
They're 71st in FIFA and 78th in ELO, so just slightly behind Montenegro in both those systems. They've been in the 70s for a little while. They did kind of have this brief peak to 46th and 49th in December 2018, but that seems a bit of a blip, as was a blip kind of in June 2013 when they spiked to 46th and 40th again.
Yeah, I mean, we're really just looking over the past 10 years here, but we know that both Bulgaria and Hungary have been much stronger teams in their past. And finally, Lithuania, who we've seen an awful drop off, that must show up in the rankings too.
Yeah, it absolutely does. They went from a team that was kind of around the hundreds, 90s, hundreds in both systems, and they've steadily fallen to 144th in FIFA and 151st in ELO. So that's a drop of about 50 places, and yeah, what we'd expect based on their recent form.
Yeah, really dropped down to the bottom of the European teams here, but they have been much stronger in the past. All right, let's move on to the head-to-head. So you're going to kind of give us the record, and I'll add any details that about recent games or important games that they've played.
Sure. So Hungary and Serbia haven't met, certainly not as Serbia, nor has Hungary met Montenegro, but they have met Bulgaria many times. Hungary winning 8, losing or drawing 1 and losing just 2, so a superior record over Bulgaria.
Yeah, I'll go over some of the history here because they both have long histories. They met in the 1934 World Cup qualifying. Hungary won both of those, no surprise back then. 1962 World Cup group stage, Hungary won 6-1. And in 1966 group stage, Hungary won 3-1. And most recently, they've met in the 2020 Euro Cup qualifying. That was a playoff round, 1 of 2, and that was in Bulgaria, but Hungary won 3-0. So really, Hungary getting the better of them most of the time.
Yeah, interesting to see that long of a history.
Yeah.
Hungary's record with Lithuania is shorter. They've only met twice, and it was a win and a draw for Hungary.
That's right, and that was back in 2002 World Cup qualifying. Okay, let's take a look at Serbia, which includes some of Yugoslavia's records.
Yes, we'll talk a bit about Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia has a better record over Hungary. They met twice, and Yugoslavia won both.
Yeah, and actually thrashed them. That was in the 1998 World Cup qualifying in a playoff, and Yugoslavia thrashed Hungary twice, 7-1 and 5-0.
Yeah, interesting. Between two fallen giants.
Yeah.
Serbia and Montenegro haven't met. Of course, they were part of the same country for many years. Serbia and Bulgaria haven't met, but Yugoslavia did meet Bulgaria. They have a record of 3 wins, 2 draws, and 1 defeat.
Yeah, again, this is kind of deep history. So 1960 and 1986 with their biggest meetings. I won't go into detail, though.
Yeah, Serbia and Montenegro together have played Lithuania twice. Serbia and Montenegro winning both.
Right, that was in 2006 World Cup qualifying.
And then Serbia has met Lithuania twice more, and that was in 2010 and 2020. They have 3 wins and 1 defeat.
Yeah, I think we got the graphic wrong there, but yes, 3 wins and 1 defeat.
Yeah.
All right, well, that is Serbia. Let's see. We're kind of ordering them in terms of the winning teams here, or the higher ranked or higher pot teams. So Montenegro and Bulgaria, how have they fared?
They have an interesting record of 1 win, 4 draws, and 1 defeat. Or that's for Montenegro. So I guess an even record of 1 win each from 6 games.
Yeah, and that's all recent from 2010 onwards, and most recently in 2020 Euro Cup qualifying where they tied twice. So really even record there.
And then Bulgaria and Lithuania, they have an even record, and that's super recent. That's a win apiece.
Yeah, 2022 World Cup qualifying there, and each winning at home. So that actually kind of shapes up to make an interesting group, since the teams seem fairly even in their head-to-heads.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the odds that the odds makers are giving them.
So Hungary are the pot 1 team. We saw that they're slightly lower than Serbia in the rankings. And that's actually reflected in the odds. Serbia are given a 58 chance of winning the group, and Hungary 40%. So the odds makers favoring pot 2 Serbia there.
Yeah.
Montenegro have just a 7% chance to win the group. That's higher than Bulgaria's 2% and also higher than Lithuania's 1%.
All right. Do you agree with the rankings? Oh, sorry, the odds, I should say.
It's an interesting one with Hungary. They've been very competitive with some top teams, including both at tournament finals and at the Nations League, but they haven't always been consistent against middle teams. So I think they face a bunch of middle teams here, which is kind of interesting, whether they can kind of raise their game, because they have had some disappointing results as well, for as many good results as they've had.
I mean, I agree. Fourth place finishes in the last 2 qualifying campaigns. It's all well and good to do well against teams like Germany and England, but you gotta do well against teams like this, and they haven't been that good there.
Yeah, so I do worry about their consistency. Serbia are coming off a really strong World Cup qualifying campaign. So I maybe favor them a little bit. I do see the Serbia and Hungary as being the top 2 teams in this group, but potentially vulnerable to a really good or kind of comeback performance from one of the teams below.
Yeah, we'll just finish off on that topic. I personally think Serbia is a bit higher than Hungary, 58-40. I guess that is higher. I definitely think Serbia is going to win this group. It's shocking that they haven't reached a Euro Cup qualifying, but I think they'll correct that here, at least by finishing second. But I would expect them to finish first.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say I would probably slightly favor Serbia, but I think it will be a little closer. I do think Hungary are well capable of turning in a good campaign here.
Always good to have a bit of disagreement on the podcast. Do you see any of those teams maybe doing a bit better than the below 10% expectation given them?
Probably not to win the group. It's difficult to say. Like I do see Lithuania and Bulgaria as both on a decline, and I don't really see enough signs that that's going to be arrested here. So that I do think Montenegro, 7% isn't great, but it's 3.5 times more than what Bulgaria is. And I do think Montenegro are the likeliest third place finishers here, and the most likely possibly of upsetting the established order.
Oh, I got to disagree with you there. I guess, maybe because of the history, I'm just waiting for Bulgaria to make a bit of a comeback to the top half of the group. I mean, one of these 3 has to emerge, right? Because they'll be playing each other. So one of them is going to come out ahead. Again, maybe I'm a bit more history oriented, but I think it's going to be Bulgaria. I used to consider Montenegro a bit of a black box because they started their qualifying so well, but they've been pretty weak since, and I don't see much of a chance of kind of they have no form to come back to, let's put it that way, really, whereas Bulgaria, I think, have a chance of coming back to form the way Hungary has come back to form in recent years.
Yeah. Interesting that Bulgaria did finish ahead of Montenegro in the 2020 Euro Cup qualifying. So they both were the bottom 2 finishers in the group. So even with that, both teams can improve.
Yeah, how about Lithuania? Do you give them any sort of a chance? They've been so ghastly lately.
I don't think so. And I think the most recent Nations League results, bested by Faroe Islands and losing to twice to Luxembourg, I believe it was. I think they're really in the category of kind of the weakest teams in Europe. Perhaps capable of some points here, but I don't see them moving off bottom.
Yeah, I really like more and more as we've gone through the podcast, our Fallen Giants theme. Lithuania was kind of a mid-table team for a while, so there's a chance of them making a bit of a comeback here. But as you say, it's been so grim in the past little while that it would be kind of a big turnaround now. I mean, I think in time they've got to come out of League D and be a bit better than they are, but no real sign of it. Okay, well, are we ready to move on to the prediction, or do you have a bit more to add?
No, I think that's it. You normally try and nail me down on my
yeah.
So I'll expect that, and I'll preempt it. I do think. Actually, I'll go different. I'll say maybe Hungary to win the group, just to be different from you. I think it'll be close with Serbia. I think Montenegro third, Bulgaria fourth, Lithuania last.
Yeah, I do have a couple of details to add in terms of players. I think it's a big loss that Hungary have lost two of their forwards. These were the forwards that actually got their winning goals against England and Germany, and they're gone now. That's one of the reasons I pip Serbia well above Hungary here. So I'm going to go Serbia-Hungary. And sorry, I think you said your bottom three, but what did you say for them?
I said Montenegro third.
Right. Okay, and I'm choosing Bulgaria third, kind of banking on a bit of a comeback.
And then I think we both had Lithuania last.
Yeah. Okay, well, there we go, and we will see how that turns out. Actually, this turned out to be a lot more interesting a group than I initially saw when I first saw it. I mean, we did see that it was a fairly weak group, but these are fairly interesting teams, all capable of coming back to better form.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, let's finish by looking at the games that have been played. So Connor knows the results of these games, but I've been holding off for this media cast so that I could actually make a valid prediction. So what do we have for the first round? That was in March.
Yeah, so the first match was Bulgaria home to Montenegro. So perhaps seeing if one of these teams could take an early edge. What do you predict?
Yeah, well, this actually puts to the test our discussion, although Bulgaria being at home have the advantage anyway. But I've picked Bulgaria to be third and you've picked Montenegro. So I'm going to go, they have an even record over 6 games between 2010 and 2020. So it seems pretty even here. But I'm going to go with Bulgaria 2-1 at home.
In fact, it was Montenegro winning 1-0.
Ooh.
So a feather in my cap.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
That's right. Well, that's Bulgaria not coming back to form as I hoped they would. We also have the second game.
Serbia are at home to Lithuania. What do you see here?
Well, I picked Serbia to win the group, and I think at home, for me, this is top against bottom with the top team at home. So I'm going to say pretty one-sided, 2-0, or shall I go 3-0? 3-0 Serbia.
It was 2-0.
Oh, that's what I originally had.
But a comfortable win nonetheless.
It is, yeah. Okay, so that puts Serbia on top after the first round, but they played another round a couple of days later. What do we have there?
Yeah, so we had Hungary versus Bulgaria.
Right, and Hungary didn't play in the first round. And this is really a key game between two really history teams. And we saw in the head-to-head that H has a winning history. They're at home here too. But I don't think they're going to be scoring as much as they were. So I'm going to go 1-0 Hungary.
It was a win for Hungary, but it was 3-0 here. So
so much for my predictions, eh?
That's a matchup that goes back to the 1930s. So very interesting.
Yeah.
And then finally,
Bulgaria really not living up to my expectations here.
Yeah. Then we have an interesting one: Montenegro home to Serbia. A lot of political history between those two.
Yeah, their first kind of official meeting since separating as a country. Again, I'm picking Serbia to win this group, and I think they have the strength to win away here. Montenegro have had some good points in their history, but I think they're a pretty weak team now. 2-1 Serbia!
And Serbia did get the road win. 2-0 was the final result. So Montenegro, I didn't think that was a good opportunity for potential upset, but did not come to pass.
All right. Well, how does that leave the table? I guess Serbia well on top, hey?
Yeah, Serbia 2 wins from 2. Hungary have won their only game. They have 3 points. Montenegro win and a loss, and then Lithuania and Bulgaria both winless.
Right. So still no kind of trend on what we thought. You picked Hungary to win the group. I picked Serbia, but they both won their game. So we'll have to see how they do down the road. We have a few games. June is the next game, and you can predict on those since they haven't happened yet. What do you think with Lithuania and Bulgaria?
Yeah, Bulgaria have proven a little bit weaker than expected so far, but I still think they'll beat a very weak Lithuania. I think this is Lithuania's best chance for points, so it'll be close, but I'm going to say 2-1 Bulgaria.
Yes, and I gotta say, I think I would have said that at the beginning of the campaign, but given that Bulgaria have looked kind of weak, I think I'll go with 1-1 here, maybe 1-1 favoring Bulgaria.
Yeah.
All right, we also have Montenegro at home to Hungary.
Yeah, a big game for Montenegro to try and kind of pull back into the race for a qualifying spot. I think they'll be competitive here, but Hungary did put 3 away in their first game. I think Hungary will win again. They're my predicted group winner, so I'm going to say 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you in as far as I think Hungary and Serbia will dominate the group. I think, as you seem to be saying, there is a possibility of a bit of an upset here of Montenegro getting something out of the game, but I'd have to go 2-1 Hungary also.
All right.
Well, maybe I'll go 1-0 Hungary because of my forwards theme that Hungary has less offense. So I'll go 1-0 Hungary.
All right. Well, we'll see how those play out.
Yeah. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the media cast here. So great talking to you about this group, the Fallen Giants group. And any closing thoughts there?
No, I mean, I think this is an opportunity for really all 5 of these teams. None of them are consistent qualifiers for the Euros, so it's a good opportunity. Even for the weaker teams, this is possibly as good as a draw as they might get. Interesting to see which Giants will reemerge.
Yeah.
Definitely an opportunity for a couple teams here.
All right, well said. That was a good closing, and we will see you again for Group H.
See you next time.